Respect. Everyone claims they want it. Every man quietly aches for it. And yet most live their entire lives without ever commanding it. They beg, they bargain, they shout louder than anyone else, but true respect slips through their fingers like sand. Why? Because respect is never given. It is taken, not through violence, not through brute force, but through something far more unsettling, something most men are terrified to confront. This is where the forbidden mind of Niccolò Machiavelli enters. To his enemies, he was the devil's secretary, a schemer who turned politics into manipulation. To those who read deeper, he was the man who whispered the rules that no one dares speak out loud. Machiavelli's genius was not in how to conquer with weapons, but how to bend human nature without drawing blood. His writings are not just about kings and rulers. They are a mirror held up to every man who has ever struggled to command respect in his own life. And here lies the truth most of us resist. Force may silence someone, but it will never make them respect you. In fact, the more you rely on threats, power, or desperate pleas, the less others truly believe in you. Respect is not born in dominance. It is born in a presence so undeniable, so steady, that people have no choice but to bend toward it. Machiavelli's forbidden rule is not about cruelty. It's about power without violence, authority without chains, influence without raising your voice. And once you see this truth, you'll never look at human relationships the same way again. To understand Machiavelli's forbidden rule, we first need to strip away the cartoon version of him that history has handed us. Most people know his name as an insult, Machiavellian, meaning cold, manipulative, ruthless. They imagine him as a shadowy figure whispering in the ears of tyrants. But in truth, Niccolò Machiavelli was a man broken by politics. Once a loyal servant of Florence, he was betrayed, exiled, and left in poverty. And from that humiliation, he wrote The Prince, not as a manual for cruelty, but as an unflinching look at how humans really behave when power is on the line. And here is the part that unsettles us most. Machiavelli was not describing kings alone. He was describing you, your relationships, your workplace, your friendships, because the same laws that govern courts and empires govern every human interaction. So what is the forbidden rule? Respect cannot be forced, it must be engineered. Machiavelli wrote that rulers who rely only on fear or punishment are fragile. People obey them only while the threat looms. But the moment weakness shows, loyalty vanishes. The real secret, he argued, is presence. The subtle construction of an aura that makes others believe resistance is impossible, even unthinkable. Think about it in your own life. Have you ever met someone who never raised their voice, never threatened, never begged, and yet everyone seemed to gravitate toward them? That is not an accident. That is Machiavelli's rule in action. Respect flows toward the man who controls perception. Machiavelli observed that people are not moved by abstract virtues like justice or fairness. They are moved by what they see and feel in the moment. A ruler could be cruel behind closed doors, but if he appeared steady, generous, and decisive in public, he would be admired. Likewise, a man could be intelligent and kind, but if he appeared weak, unsure, or desperate, he would be dismissed. In other words, it is not who you truly are that matters. It is how you are perceived. This is the part most men refuse to accept. They cling to the belief that if they are good enough, honest enough, kind enough, people will eventually respect them. Machiavelli would laugh at this delusion. He understood that human beings are not wired to respect goodness on its own. They respect stability, confidence, and the quiet edge of power. A man who tries to be loved without embodying authority will not be loved. He will be used. Picture a king who wants his people's admiration. He lowers taxes, gives handouts, and avoids punishment. At first, the people cheer, but soon, his generosity becomes expected. When he finally draws a boundary, they revolt, because they never respected him, they only consumed him. Now replace the king with a man in a modern relationship. He bends over backwards to please, avoids conflict, gives endlessly. At first, he is praised, but soon the same thing happens. His kindness becomes invisible, his weakness becomes clear, and the respect he longs for evaporates. Machiavelli's rule slices into the core of this tragedy. People do not respect what is always available, what is always pleading, what is always safe. They respect what has edges, what demands consideration, what cannot be taken for granted. The man who embodies this is not necessarily feared, but he is never ignored. This is why Machiavelli wrote that it is safer for a ruler to be feared than loved. But notice carefully what he meant. He did not mean cruelty for its own sake. He meant that love is fragile when it is not rooted in respect. People may love you today and betray you tomorrow if they do not feel your strength. But fear, or rather, the perception of strength, binds them more tightly. And when fear and love combine, respect is born. To see how this works, look at the paradox of great leaders. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, was deeply loved by his people, but he was also unshakable, disciplined, a man of immovable presence. People did not love him because he bent to their whims. They loved him because they felt his strength. Or think of modern examples. A teacher whose class falls silent the moment he enters, not because he yells, but because his presence demands it. A CEO whose team hangs on every word, not because he bribes them, but because his confidence radiates stability. These are Machiavellian men, not in cruelty, but in the quiet art of commanding respect without force. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Most men sabotage themselves. They explain themselves too much. They overcompensate. They argue, shout, or try to prove their worth. They cling to the fantasy that respect can be earned through endless explanation. Machiavelli cuts through this with brutal clarity. Respect comes not from the words you scatter, but from the silence you command. Not from how much you give, but from what you withhold. Not from begging to be understood, but from being unshakably certain in your stance. And if you doubt this, observe how people test boundaries. Children push until a parent pushes back. Employees slack until a boss enforces a standard. Lovers drift until a partner commands presence. Without boundaries, respect cannot survive. With them, respect blooms. Machiavelli understood this 500 years ago, and the lesson has not changed. The forbidden rule, then, is this: respect is not won by force, nor by kindness alone. It is cultivated through the mastery of perception, the control of presence, and the refusal to be made small. The man who embodies this becomes untouchable. He does not demand respect, he attracts it, as though gravity itself bends toward him. Machiavelli's forbidden rule is not a dusty artifact meant for princes long dead. It is alive in your daily life. The office you walk into, the conversations you have, the relationships you cling to, all are governed by the same laws he saw 5 centuries ago. And yet, most men walk blind through this terrain, confused when respect slips from their grasp. Let's start with the rawest example: relationships. Many men are haunted by the silent question, why doesn't she respect me? They give everything: time, affection, money, loyalty, yet they feel a cold distance. They hear, you're a nice guy, but, and never understand the hidden meaning. Machiavelli would tell them the truth they least want to hear: being nice is not enough. In fact, when divorced from strength, it is a liability. Women, like all human beings, do not consciously admire a man who dissolves himself to please them. They may accept his kindness, but deep down, they resent his lack of backbone. Respect arises not from how much you give, but from the boundaries you hold. If you do not command space, if you do not project stability, you will be tolerated, not respected. And tolerance is the slow death of attraction. Consider the man who never says no. At first, he seems endlessly supportive. But soon, his presence becomes predictable, his energy cheapened. What once felt like devotion now feels like desperation. Compare him to the man who sets boundaries, who gives selectively, who carries himself with quiet authority. He may not always be liked in the moment, but his presence cannot be ignored. He is taken seriously. Machiavelli's rule lives inside him. But this dynamic is not limited to love. It infects every corner of society. Walk into a workplace and watch how respect is distributed. It rarely flows to the man who works the hardest, who slaves away quietly, who tries to win approval through effort alone. Instead, it flows to the man who can hold a room, who speaks with calm certainty, who seems as though he knows something others do not. His presence creates gravity, and people instinctively orbit around him. He does not beg for influence, he embodies it. This is why promotions often bypass the quiet, hard-working man in favor of the one who carries himself with authority. It may seem unfair, even cruel, but it is reality. Respect does not follow sweat alone. It follows perception, presence, and the unshakable sense that someone belongs at the top. Machiavelli would remind you that appearances shape reality, whether you like it or not. Now let's step back and examine the broader society. We live in an era that preaches equality, kindness, and inclusion, noble values on the surface. But look closer, and you'll see something darker. Those who hesitate, those who bend too easily, those who live only to be liked, are devoured. In politics, in business, in culture, the timid are silenced, while those who project dominance, even without substance, command the stage. This is not a glitch in the system. It is human nature. Machiavelli saw it clearly. People are drawn to strength and repelled by weakness. And yet, the greatest danger is not out there in the world. It is inside you, because most men sabotage themselves before anyone else does. They betray their own respect by tolerating mediocrity in their habits, by folding under pressure, by accepting less than they deserve. Every time you allow yourself to be treated as an afterthought, you reinforce to the world that you are not to be taken seriously. Every time you explain yourself excessively, every time you let fear dictate your choices, you shrink your presence. And the world responds accordingly. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how someone's opinion of you changes the moment you change how you carry yourself? The co-worker who once dismissed you suddenly listens when you speak with calm authority. The friend who mocked you pauses when you set a clear boundary. The partner who seemed distant leans in when you stop chasing and start holding your ground. Nothing external changed, only your presence. That is Machiavelli's forbidden rule made flesh. But here is the paradox. Respect without force is not about pretending to be something you're not. It is not about wearing a mask of arrogance or cruelty. If you fake it without substance, people will eventually see through you. Respect that lasts must be built on inner alignment. It means you cultivate discipline privately, so your presence radiates authority publicly. You sharpen your mind, strengthen your will, and carry yourself as though you know your value. Not because you scream it, but because you live it. Take the example of silence. In arguments, weak men shout to be heard, thinking volume equals power. But true authority speaks less, not more. A well-timed silence can crush an opponent more than 1,000 words. Why? Because it communicates control. It says, I do not need to chase your validation. I decide when I will speak, and when I do, it will matter. This is how kings win without drawing swords. This is how modern men command respect without force. Or consider presence in the digital age. Social media has trained people to overshare, to constantly explain, to seek approval in likes and comments. But the more you broadcast your need for validation, the less respect you command. The man who reveals everything about himself online is not mysterious, he is disposable. Contrast this with the man who chooses carefully what he reveals, who speaks rarely but decisively. His words carry weight because they are not cheapened by excess. He becomes the one others wait to hear from, rather than the one begging to be heard. Respect today is more fragile than ever, but also more powerful when mastered. In a world drowning in noise, the man who projects quiet certainty becomes magnetic. In a culture addicted to validation, the man who does not need it becomes untouchable. This is the ultimate application of Machiavelli's forbidden rule. By mastering perception, you rise above the chaos. By refusing to beg, you teach others to lean in. By embodying stability, you become the axis around which others revolve. And here is where the knife twists. Most men will never accept this. They will keep chasing love without authority, kindness without boundaries, effort without presence. They will cry out, "But I gave everything," never realizing that giving everything is exactly why they lost respect. Machiavelli's lesson is merciless, but it is also liberating. If you dare to accept it, you will see that respect is not a gift handed to you. It is a reality you create, a force you embody, a presence you command. You now understand the essence of Machiavelli's forbidden rule, that respect is commanded through presence, not begged through force. But knowledge without application is nothing. So here are the rules, distilled into truths you must live by. They are not polite suggestions. They are laws. Break them, and you will lose respect. Live them, and people will bend toward you, without you ever raising your voice. First, never beg for respect. The moment you plead, you have already lost. Respect is not requested, it is demonstrated. You show it in your posture, in your voice, in the way you refuse to chase what diminishes you. People feel this before they ever hear your words. If you find yourself explaining too much, justifying too much, or defending yourself too much, stop. Silence carries more authority than desperation. Second, do not chase love. Embody strength, and love will chase you. This truth is brutal but undeniable. The man who clings, who waits endlessly for approval, loses the very thing he desires. But the man who stands firm in his value, who carries himself as though he needs nothing, becomes magnetic. Affection follows strength, not submission. Third, never allow your boundaries to dissolve. People will test you, subtly and directly, to see if you can be bent. If you bend too easily, you will never be respected. A no spoken calmly has more power than 1,000 yes whispered out of fear. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are proof you take yourself seriously. And no one can respect a man who does not respect himself. Fourth, remember that appearances shape reality. Machiavelli knew this better than anyone. If you walk into a room unsure of yourself, others will believe it. If you move with certainty, even before you have proof, others will align with that perception. Confidence is not the absence of doubt, it is the refusal to show it. People are guided not by your hidden fears, but by the image you project. Control that image, and you control the game. Fifth, use silence as a weapon. In arguments, in negotiations, in moments of tension, weak men flood the air with words. Strong men wait. They allow the weight of silence to do the work. This unsettles people, forces them to reveal more, and places you in control. Silence is not emptiness. It is dominance disguised. Sixth, scarcity creates value. The more you give yourself freely, the less people appreciate you. Your time, your words, your energy must be guarded. When you offer them selectively, they become priceless. When you scatter them carelessly, they become worthless. The man who is everywhere, available to everyone, commands nothing. The man who is deliberate with his presence is remembered long after he leaves. Seventh, never reveal everything. People respect mystery more than exposure. The moment you put your entire soul on the table, people stop valuing it. Hold something back. Let others wonder what you are thinking, what you are capable of, what you might do next. Mystery creates gravity. When others cannot fully read you, they cannot dismiss you. Eighth, build strength privately so it radiates publicly. Do not confuse respect with theatrics. If you have no discipline in your habits, no control over your impulses, no inner foundation, your projection will eventually crack. Real presence is born in solitude, in the hours when no one is watching. Train your mind, discipline your body, refine your will. Then, when you enter the world, respect follows naturally, because people feel the solidity behind you. Ninth, do not overexplain. The insecure man feels compelled to prove himself constantly, to unload every reason why he deserves respect. But every word he piles on only exposes his neediness. The confident man says less, trusts himself, and lets reality prove him right. Explanation is often a mask for insecurity. Authority requires no mask. 10th, never confuse being liked with being respected. Many men live their lives in pursuit of approval, twisting themselves into shapes to be accepted. But those who desperately seek to be liked end up tolerated at best, dismissed at worst. Respect sometimes requires being disliked in the short term. If you choose approval over authority, you will always be treated as lesser. And finally, live as though respect is your natural state. Not arrogance, not cruelty, but quiet certainty. Respect does not come from demanding it or from shouting at the world to acknowledge you. It comes when you carry yourself as if you already have it, when you embody stability and strength so naturally that others feel smaller in its presence. Machiavelli's rule is not about pretending. It is about being. These are not tricks. They are not surface-level tactics. They are laws of human nature. Ignore them, and you will always feel invisible, always chasing, always wondering why others pass you by. Live them, and you will find that respect arrives without effort, because you no longer ask for it. You simply are it. Machiavelli's truth is merciless, but it is also liberating. Respect cannot be begged. It cannot be bought. It cannot be tricked out of others through endless effort or constant pleading. It is either commanded through presence, or it is lost forever. That is the law, and no amount of wishing will bend it. Think about your own life for a moment. Every relationship that has left you hollow, every friendship that has turned cold, every workplace where you felt invisible. All of it traces back to this forbidden rule. You tried to give too much. You tried to explain too much. You tried to be liked instead of being respected. And in that surrender, you betrayed yourself. Machiavelli was hated by many because he dared to say what most men fear to admit. Strength commands loyalty, while weakness invites contempt. The world will never pity you into respect. People may smile, they may nod, they may pretend to admire you. But deep down, they measure you against one silent scale. Do you carry yourself as though you deserve respect, or do you shrink and beg for it? That scale decides everything. And here is the most haunting truth: you cannot fake this. You cannot wrap yourself in arrogance or loudness and hope it covers your weakness. People can smell insecurity as clearly as blood in the water. Respect must be built from the inside out. It must be grounded in self-discipline, in boundaries, in the refusal to be ruled by fear. Only then will it radiate outward, quietly, unshakably, undeniably. Imagine yourself walking into a room where you are no longer desperate to be liked. Imagine standing before a woman, a boss, a rival, and knowing you do not need to prove anything. Imagine a silence so steady it unsettles others without you saying a word. That is the life Machiavelli's forbidden rule offers. Not power through cruelty, but authority through presence. Most men will never touch this reality. They will remain chained by their need to please, enslaved by their hunger for approval. They will shout, beg, work themselves into exhaustion, and still be dismissed. But for the few who dare to live differently, who dare to embody strength without noise, the world shifts. Doors open. Eyes follow. Respect arrives without being asked for. This is the path Machiavelli laid bare, a path many fear, but only the wise walk. To command respect without force is not only possible, it is the highest form of power. And now you know the rule. What you do with it is yours to decide.